Hey everybody, so I just want to do a quick intro. All my light stuff is done here, but um, I have a series of things talking about this wireless lighting. So these switch like this is a wireless switch, and this is battery powered by like a small watch battery. I'm not exactly positive how long it'll last. I anticipate, potentially years before I have to replace the battery. But a switch like this has two switches on it that can and then the other switch powers up there, or sorry, turns on and off up there in the loft. Anyways, this with two receivers for controlling things is like $35 or something on Amazon. You can get the receivers individually for like $13. You can pair each of these switches with like 8 or 10 receivers. A switch like this, whether it's this or a single button, the only problem with the single button that makes it kind of is that it's all just one big square for a single button. So, but whatever. Anyways, that single button is also like $8 or $10. Anyways, so lighting is something I did not think about as much as I should have, and I thought, yeah, 5 down in this area, that makes sense. Sort of, one over here by the door, 2 over that area, 2 over the sink, right? But as it turns out, actually, that's really bright. So initially, one of the things I did was just a dimmer switch to be able to bring that down. Say, in the evening, I'm like right now, I'm still working on some volleyball photos from yesterday and whatnot. Just to, I don't like the harsh light when I'm sitting in here. But the other thing is I wanted to be able to turn on and off these lights over the sink independently of the others, which all 5 of these are, of course, on one switch. They're on one single circuit. So that's problematic. So what I was able to do here is I actually put the a receiver in each of these lights. And then additionally, I have a receiver over there before that dimmer switch. So I can control everything. I like also with these wireless switches like this that you can put, I have my switch right here on the side of the fridge, which is the most convenient spot to me for having that here in the kitchen. I also like that with this type of wireless switch, it's not like most of the ones that I've found, which are actually like using Wi-Fi, as in like on your Wi-Fi system or router and Alexa or Google Voice or whatever control it. I don't want to deal with an app on my phone for my light switches. These are just very straightforward. You connect one of these switches to a receiver, and then you put the other receiver that controls all of them is in here behind the switch. And once I have that receiver programmed to one switch, I can then use that switch to program as many other switches to it as I want. So like, right now I have also up there in the loft another switch that I can turn on and off the lights down here or right up there next to my bed. And I also put in a dimmer there because that's kind of nice at night sitting in bed reading or whatever. I don't have to have super bright light. I do plan to put a dimmer switch here in the bathroom because right now, it is super bright all the time. And again, I don't know, I'm not a super bright light kind of person either. So this, like I said, this is just sort of a little intro explaining that stuff, and then I'm going to attach on all the little videos going through, putting in the receivers and the transmitters and stuff. It's something that if I had to do it again, if I was going back and changing sort of how I did the initial process, I would probably have had them do some sort of a wireless controller for the lighting instead of what I have, just because, again, one of the things now with the wood walls, I really like the wood walls, but if you have to move a light switch in this, you can't, it's not like plaster where I could just pull this out, cut through drywall to put in, what I need where, and then even just patch up whatever hole I had to do here very easily. I think it's a much more involved process with the wood walls. If you want to do something like move a light switch, it's not easy anyways. But like I said, with this, you could put magnets on the back. You could even just, have the one sitting up here to go for the other loft because I haven't decided exactly where I want to put it. But, I can just walk around with this. Heck, I could have one in my car and control my outside lights. And, oh yeah, that's right, this one's not hooked up to one yet. Because this will be for the lofts on this side, and I haven't done those, or lights on this side of the loft. I haven't done those yet. You could have something. You could have one of these in your car and turn on and off your outside lights when you get up to your house. There, it's pretty much limitless on what you can do. So, yeah. First of all, this is a 3-way switch that I'm working on right now. I'm going to replace this with a 1-way switch that'll only control the dimmer. I'll go over a little bit later, hopefully, how 3-way switches work. I didn't know about that myself until recently. The reason why I'm doing that is there's going to be a transmitter that will control these 5 lights on the lower floor that are connected. Then what I'm going to do with these lights over the sink that I want to be able to turn on and off independent of the others is, unlike back there, where I'm going to put a transmitter that will interrupt the power supply to all the lights. On this one, I'll just put the transmitter between this point and this point. So there will still be power going to the other lights, but it'll be unable to reach this light if that transmitter is turned off. So, or not transmitter, sorry, receiver. So I'll kind of show you guys as I go along here, and we'll see what we figure out. All right, so before I get on to putting in the receivers and the lights, I'm going to go ahead and replace this. This is a 3-way switch with a dimmer. I'm going to replace this with just a dimmer because I'm going to use my transmitter receivers, my wireless, to actually accomplish the function of the 3-way. As a result, I don't need one of these travelers. If you are unfamiliar with how 3-way switches work, which up until a little while ago I was actually, even though it's a fairly simple process once you understand it, you have your hot, which is your positive for the purposes of normal if you're used to other electronics. It's also your negative, but that is where your power is coming from the house into your light switch. Then it's going to send it out one of 2 travelers. Now, both of these are red at the light switch, but as you can see, one is black with electric tape to flag it, so I know it's a traveler, and the other one is, well, it looks kind of pink, but is red. So, the way the 3-way switch works, for anybody unfamiliar, when I turn this on or off, what it does is it switches which of these 2 red lines is connected to this black line. So which of these 2 red lines is receiving the power. Now, if I have it switched so the power will go through the black line, and the other switch is also switched so that it will go through the black line, you have a completed circuit. However, if I then switch this over so that it's sending power through the red line, on the other one, the red line's off and the black line's on, you have an incomplete circuit, so it won't power. Like I said, it's a fairly straightforward thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going by the wiring diagram. This is my hot, so I'm going to connect my hot to here, even though right now the circuit's off, so these aren't actually hot in those terms. This I'm going to connect to my other traveler. The neutral wires are the ones in the white back there, and that is completing the circuit all the way around, the rest of the way basically. And that's why you have up here, you have only the black, which is at the end of the circuit. Well, not, it's actually halfway through the circuit. But anyways, you have that coming through here, and the circuit is not continuing on to other things after this. It's then just going right back to the neutral, and that's the end of it. But hopefully I've helped more than I've confused explaining all this. And of course, you have what looks sort of blue. It's actually green. It's just in this light. That is your ground. So I'm going to connect that. And again, this will be my hot. This will connect into what is currently the black traveler, which is what I'm going to have connected up over on the other side. I'm just going to cap off my red traveler because I'm not going to try and go through removing that from the system and everything. And if someday I want to make it back to a 3-way, it's fairly easy. And the red one is easier to note as being a traveler than if I leave the black one capped off. So that's pretty much that. So I'm going to connect this all up, and I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to actually end up moving this transmitter over to that light. The way that this is currently connected up, I'm just going to yank these out here since I have my power off. I'll handle all my wires. So the way that this is set up, I'm going to end up taking this transmitter out, and I'm going to connect my black traveler to my black hot, and then I'm going to cap off my red traveler, that pink one right there. and that should do that. And then I'll have power straight through, and then I'll just put this transmitter over in the other or receiver over in the light, and we should be done with that part. I should add about this, by the way, and just something to keep in mind whenever you're playing around with electricity or having fun like that. So these two receivers, these two switches are actually on two different circuits. This is for the kitchen, this is for the loft. So one of the things is, though, they share a neutral connection. So what that means is I want to shut off both circuits before I start playing around with this, because I still do have, if I just shut off the living room connection, because these are sharing a neutral, there is still the potential that you have a path for power to come up through here and into, you know, whatever you're touching here. So you want to make sure in a case like this where they're both connected into the same neutral, and frankly, even if you're just working in this box and they weren't, just as an extra safety precaution, you want to make sure that everything that is in the box that you're working on, that the circuits to connect to, the circuits involved are all, those circuit breakers are all turned off. Just sort of a little personal safety note, just, you know, electrocution is bad. Alright, as I'm saying that, normally that would not necessarily be a concern if you're just dealing with switches, because neither of them would be connected into the neutral. The reason why these are connected into the neutral is they need to get power to them, and without that they would not be powered. The receivers, which is its own whole long explanation. The part about doing it this way is, in order to make the transmitter work, or the receiver work, I've got to gain access to my lovely bundle of neutral wires, which were stuffed all the way back and behind everything else. And so I've got to unscrew this cap, and I've got to connect my neutral wires there. So see that. Okay, so now I have my two neutral wires into the giant bundle of neutral wires back there. Now this, if you look at the, and this is labeled on the receiver, which is nice. This is the in, the red one, so that's going to connect to your hot, and that's your out. So the black one is going to connect to your load. Now, so I can't remember exactly where I was in all of this, because I was pairing up some switches and things, and deleting switches, and with the, well, the wireless transmitters. Anyway, so I have my receiver in here. I have my neutral back, the neutrals all in one big bundle back there. I have the electric tape just for, you know, extra measure. I have all my connections made here. I have this, so, and you can also just hit it there and make sure that it's actually making connection. Or I hit my light switch and I get my lights on that way. So essentially, there you go. And of course, my dimmer switch works perfectly fine, which I very much like having the dimmer switch. So now the next thing that I need to do is shut my circuit back off and put transmitters in each of those two lights down there so I can control those independently. Alright, so hopefully these should be pretty easy. Basically, so let's see, right here what we have is, this is our ground, which will stay attached just like it is. And then we have our connection to our load and hot here together. With your, should be your, which one was the first one? Hot coming in here, load going in there. I didn't even have it on finger. So should be the hot coming in here and the load going out there. For my purposes here, it doesn't really matter, because where I'm connecting this, the receiver between, is between this line going to the light and these two. So that's too easy. Same thing on here. I'll be connecting the neutral between here and these. So this should actually be a very simple and straightforward operation. The main thing is I just need to have 2 extra wire nuts. Alright. In the case of this particular one, and different brands, different ways, this red in wire is going to replace the black wire that goes to the light, and then I will connect the black wire that goes to the light directly to the black wire coming from the receiver. Okay, I did one thing counter to the, well, not counter, but not exactly the way the instructions state, but at the same time, these are instructions that have things in them like still the button instead of hold the button. Anyways, so what I have is I have my in coming from my hot, and then I have my out going to my load, and then I have all my neutral wires in a single bundle, as you do, which should work perfectly fine. So anyways, including both neutral wires coming out of the transmitter, or the receiver, which frankly seem completely unnecessary. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the power, make sure that this one works correctly before I move on to the next one. Alright, as you'll notice, although these lights are all on, because I now have this receiver in here, it is off. So I'm going to go and press the button, and it does light up. So next thing I'm going to do is the way that you get this hooked up is you hold this down until it's blinking. Press this button once, turns on, and now this button is connected to that. So all I have to do is to put all these wires back and put a transmitter in that light over there, and we are done with the downstairs, which is good, because it's going to be a little easier upstairs where there are lights on either side on separate circuits. Alrighty, so that one over there is all backing up, and now to do this one, same basic process. And I only need one additional wire nut for connecting my hot, my hot anyways, to my load, and then everything will go in together into a single neutral bundle. So good times. So that's all connected up like the other one was, and here I'm going to turn the power back on and make sure the transmitter is working before I stuff everything back up in the box. Okay, so now I will say this is not a perfect solution. A perhaps better solution, or more perfect solution, would be to put in a transmitter in every single one of these lights, and then I could leave the dimmer on permanently, and it would give me, because there you see, so now I switch that off. Now I've cut power to those switches that are in those lights, so they've sort of reset. If I wanted to have it so that I could both turn on all of these lights at once, or just 3 lights at once and 2 lights at once, or whatnot, basically the way I would do that is I'd put a transmitter in every single light fixture and then just pair them accordingly to the buttons. But this works fine for me. So again, so if I'm coming in at night or whatever, now I have this light, and I might have it set a little brighter now that, you know, because it's not quite so glaring when you only have 3 lights on as opposed to 5. Then I'm over here, I'm doing stuff or whatever, and I want to do something over here at the sink. I turn on these lights, I can turn them off again and go about my business. So it's an easy way, in my opinion, to, if things don't end up wired exactly the way that you want them later. And again, I mean, I think if you went through, I can't remember if I said in video that I'm going to include with this. If you look, there are a total of basically about 12 light fixtures in this whole house. And that's probably more than a lot of houses will have. You could very easily have every single one of your light fixtures have one of these little $13 receivers in it, and then have these 8, I think these ones are, yeah, actually I think whether it's 1 switch or 2 switch, they're about like $8 or $10. And if you want to add a switch, you can add a switch. If you want to move your switch, you can move your switch. You know, like with the one on the refrigerator, you can have these mounted with a magnet. Again, it's just one of the things. If I had to go back and do it again, I would totally just do it with all remote switches, because it's really not at all difficult to do. And again, too, you know, another alternative is I could have another switch here to turn on those 2 when I want to turn those on as well from over here. Heck, I could put a double switch over there and be able to turn off all of the lights or just those lights from over there. Yeah, so it's, you know, to me, it's, I think it makes a lot of sense. What I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to come up here, I'm going to put another, and you can see actually I already have a double switch over there for the wireless. I'm going to put a dimmer here to control the brightness, and then I'm going to again put a transmitter in with where the switch is, so that or a receiver, sorry, so that I can control that, turn it on from the bottom of the stairs, turn it off from the bottom of the stairs, whatever, as well. So In fact, actually, I could turn it off and on from anywhere. You can get little remotes that go with these systems that you could, when you pull in your car, turn on different lights that you want to have on that you don't leave on the rest of the time. So I like it. It's a nice arrangement. Buddy does not approve of me spending my time doing other things and rubbing his head, but for the most part, he's pretty happy with the lights, I think. At least not protesting them too much. Except when he's been trying to sleep and it's dark and he gives me that look that you'll give people when they turn on a light in the room and you're trying to sleep. Yeah, so I'm going to do this up here. So actually, one little addendum. After some consideration, I did decide to switch out the single for a double so that I can both turn off all the lights from over here if I want to, and then these. So basically so that if all the lights are off, I don't have to walk over there to turn back on the kitchen lights. Things with the receivers actually in the lights, I decided to do, and we'll turn this light off so that you can see. Well, you see for a split second there went, the light went out. And this works with the LEDs since there's not a lot of heat, even though I do still have these off to the side. There's a little antenna that comes with the thing. I went ahead and put it up in a place so that it's not up there in the electrical box, just to reduce the chance of any kind of interference. But again, I like it. Seems to work perfectly fine. And there we go. Alright, talk to y'all later. Bye. So actually, we'll just show this. So this is one up next to my bed that I'm going to be replacing with dimmer switch, which I have right here. And then I'm going to also be putting a transmitter in there. And as you can see, well, you can't see that well. As you can see, there's a ton of room. Sorry to wake you up, buddy. There's a ton of room back behind there for fitting my receiver in. So I'm going to do that as well in here. So I'll turn off the light here so you get some of the effect. I don't know if you actually will notice the dimming because it'll adjust the light as I dim it. But so yeah, so there you go. There's my dimmer switch is hooked up and working fine. Plus I have a transmitter up here for this too. So I can set the dimmer to what basically what will I want to wake up to in the middle of the night when I hit my switch. And there we go. Plus I can turn this on from downstairs or again even my car if I wanted to when I pull up, whatever suits me. I already had this programmed into some buttons, including the one up here and the one downstairs from what I had previously in what will now be a junction box. So I just use that same receiver so I don't have to replace it. But yeah, so there you go. That works really nicely. And again, you can turn this all the way off and you can see the little red light indicates that the receiver is on or off. And that still turns on or off even when I have this. Whereas if I had put it on the other side of the light switch and turned this light switch all the way off by accident, the receiver wouldn't have been able to receive because it would have had no power. So I do like that these remain programmed even after you disconnect them. They don't lose their programming or anything based on power, so that is helpful. So you can move them around or whatnot, or if the power goes out you don't have to reprogram all your switches or anything like that. So I like it. And I just have that, and then got my faceplate that matches it to put in there, and we are all good. More little note. So you can see the receiver is fitting all the way snug back in there, so that I have plenty of room for my switch. But I'm going to leave the antenna out a little bit around the switch, just towards the top, just barely sticking out. It'll still obviously be behind the plate and everything, but just to make sure that the signal can get out with without any kind of interference from being back there with all the other electric wires and stuff. So, all right, that should cover it, hopefully. Now I will do similar kind of thing on the other side of the loft, just so that again I can turn on and off that side from down at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm gonna put a dimmer switch in the bathroom, but I gotta get another plate for downstairs in the bathroom that'll accommodate that type of switch. So it pretty much covers it. It's not too difficult to stuff, and again I would definitely say I really like the idea of the wireless switches. I think in a tiny home they're great. The nice thing with this is I don't even have to dig out that transmitter. If I want to program another button to it, I can use this button here as a basis for I can use this button by you hold it down until it blinks really, really fast. Like that. And anyways, while it's blinking really, really fast, that puts the receiver into program mode so that it can memorize a new button, a new transmitter. So then once you have that, you can just go hit your other transmitter button, and that will then transmit to this. And then you can reverse that process without ever having to dig out the receivers, which is nice. So in the future, if I want to move this switch, attach a different switch to it or whatever, I'm in no way, shape, or form tied to having my switch here. If I decide that I want to have the head of my bed at the other end, all I have to do is move the switch, and I can still turn on and off the light at the head of my bed. It's this one is actually stuck on there. It was one of the first ones I did, so that might be a little pain in the butt if I decide to move it. But again, you could very easily put magnets on the back of one like this, and then just screw a metal plate into the wall and attach it there. Basically, it would be like hanging a picture or something, or similar. You could do it just like hanging a picture. There are a lot of ways to do it. I just like that it makes it a lot simpler for, I think, in a tiny, than trying to be dependent on hardwired switches. So again, this is something that I wish I'd paid more attention to what people were talking about before. I finalized stuff on my home, and I could just had them have it set up, and but it is what it is. And of course, then still having it like this, I can put in the dimmers and then have my lights set to the intensity that I like, and then just use those switches for turning them on and off. So it does work out, but I think it's a nice little thing. All right, I'll talk to y'all later.